Hello, welcome to part 3 of Satan the Slanderer. We're looking at the seeds of rebellion, decoding the identity, strategy, and tactics of Satan's deception so we don't become like him. As we go through this, we're going to see that Satan, he's the slanderer. And that's what we want to be very careful of because slander is so easy to do. Let's review really quickly and we'll get to part 3. We're looking at the beginning of Satan's rebellion. Part 1 was Satan's creation and location. Part 2 was Satan's exalted position. And then part 3, which we're going to do right now, is Satan's fall. And then we're going to look at his slandering in the ancient world. Part 5, his rationale for rebellion. And then 6, his slanderous strategy. So again, part 1 was Satan's creation. We noted that Satan was the height of perfection. He was a seal of perfection, full of wisdom, and perfect in beauty. Part 2, his original location, that he was located on the holy mountain of God, which is the New Jerusalem. Looking at Hebrews chapter 12, you've come to Mount Zion, to the city of the living God, the heavenly Jerusalem. That is where Satan was. And we saw the language there that it was very, very similar, in fact, actually the same as the New Jerusalem. He was also in Eden. And then we looked at his exalted position. He was the seal of perfection, full of wisdom, perfect in beauty. He was anointed cherub who covers. That God had placed him in this very special place, and that Satan unfortunately squandered that, and he walked back and forth among the fiery stones. He was one of those cherubim that God had created with that highly exalted position. Then we took a look at comparing Ezekiel 28 with Isaiah 14, and we discovered that the language is almost identical, signifying that we're probably looking at the same individual. And so that was where we left off. So we're now at his slandering and his fall. So we then come to Ezekiel 28:16. It says, "By the abundance of your slandering or trading, you became filled with violence within, and you sinned." Well, if we look at the word here in Hebrew, it's rechulatcha. So the word rechulatcha is generally translated as trading or some kind of merchandising. That's the basic idea that most of the translations will present. But as we go back and look at this word, we're going to see that it has a whole different side that, while related, gives us a much better understanding, in my opinion. Well, let's take a look at the brown driver bricks. That's known as the BDB. So we look at this root rachal, and it means to go about, and it says the meaning is dubious. In other words, they're not entirely sure what this means. But we also note that the word rachal is related to the word regel. All right, so the word regel is basically your foot or your leg. Your foot or your leg. And there are various words that come from that. We have the word meraglim, which are the spies. Remember the 12 spies that went into the land of Canaan to spy it out? They were called the meraglim. Well, what were they doing? They were going about looking, discovering different things. So this word rachal, it means to go back and forth and to do various stuff. It could include trading or merchandising stuff. There's no question about that. But it doesn't only mean that. And that's what's really significant for our study right now. According to Gesenius, his lexicon, he says it's to go about, and notes its phonetic relationship to the word ragal, which means to go on foot, and how it carries the meaning of to traffic. So there we go. It's meaning something very similar, to go back and forth. But it's also related to the word to slander. Slandering and a slanderer is pointed out as rachil. It's pointed as rachil. So rachil and rachal are the same exact root in Hebrew. And this is someone who goes about as a talebearer, spreading gossip or things that are in some way destructive. According to Brown Driver Briggs, it is a scandalmonger, as traveling about. All right, so before the days of Facebook and Twitter where you can just sit there and just, use your fingers to do the walking. Before, to spread gossip, you actually had to use your feet. You had to go to this house and hear what's happening, or this side of the market, and then travel over here and share it with these people over here. And so it involves your feet. It involves going around and taking these bits of gossip and then spreading them. So that's the basic idea. So this is someone who goes about as a talebearer, spreading gossip and things that are in some way destructive. So we could look at this as a different way. Instead of someone who is merchandising, who is into trading or business, it's somebody who is into spreading gossip. The tattler is called Rachil. That's the intensive form of Rachal. From his going hither and thither. That's according to Kyle and Delitzsch, their commentary on Proverbs 11:13. Notice that again it's the same exact root. So we have Resh, Kaf, and Lamed. Those are the three root letters of this word that allow us to see that it's the same exact root. So it's spreading malicious information. And the basic idea of the root is to go about exchanging something with the derivative meaning, going about gathering or spreading information of a generally malicious intent. That is, a slanderer. So this is really interesting when we start to take a look at this. Rather than this chapter 28 being about somebody who was doing business, it's about somebody who is, well, he's spreading other kinds of things rather than merchandise. He's spreading bits of gossip. He's spreading slander. And that changes the whole outlook. Let's take a look now at the word diavolos. The word diavolos in the Greek, it means slanderous or backbiting. That's according to the Liddell Scott Jones Classical Greek Lexicon. Diavolos, you know this word, devil, right? El diablo in Spanish, right? El diablo, diavolos, and it literally means to throw or carry across. You have the word dia, which means to go through or across, and then you have the word valo, which is where you get the word ball, right? To throw something. So it's to throw something across. To throw something across. All right, it doesn't always mean slander, but it can also use that meaning. And so later, it's to make a false accusation or to slander. So words kind of go through these metamorphoses, if you will. And so it didn't start off necessarily as to slander, but then by way of just usage, it came to mean to throw or carry across. In other words, to throw something out there and to slander. So the diabolo or diavolo can also mean to oppose, set at variance, set against, which is in concert with Satan, which is basically to oppose or to be an adversary. Interesting. So we see this very strong correlation between diavolos, slanderous, backbiting, according to Liddell Scott Jones Classical Greek Lexicon. And then this idea, it can also mean to oppose, set at variance, or set against, which is in concert with the term Satan, which means to oppose or to be an adversary. Well, looking at this idea, Dr. Robert Luganbill, in his book, The Satanic Rebellion, Background to the Tribulation, Part 1, Satan's Rebellion and Fall, he says the Hebrew word rachal has the twofold meaning of repetitive motion, trading or trafficking, and of slandering. And in your extensive conspiring, that's how he translates it, in your extensive conspiring, you were filled with wickedness and you sinned. Okay, so he takes the word conspiring. I take the word slandering. Same basic idea. But here is another scholar who has pointed out that this word can mean to slander. So I hope that this helps us to understand a little better of what is the flavor of what Satan has done. Next time we're going to look at how Satan was cast down in the garden and not before. But consider that Satan was cast down because of his slandering. That is what God is accusing him of. Not that he was doing too much business. He was like a great businessman and then he, did too well, and so God's like, okay, that does it. No, the business that he was dealing was false information, malicious lies with an evil intent. He was slandering. Who do you suppose he might have been slandering against? Well, my guess is that he was slandering about God himself. He started to say things about God in a sort of backhanded way. Think about how he was there in the garden. Hey, did God really say? Right? He never came right out and said bad things about God, but he questioned God's character. So as we're going through this, think about slander. You see, slander is insidious because it's so subtle. It calls into question somebody's character, and it's not for a good reason or even a neutral reason, but it's for a bad reason. You're subtly questioning somebody's character, hoping that your listeners will start to question them too, and then they'll think the worst of them. That's probably what Satan was doing. Well, next time we'll take a look at Satan being cast down in the garden, not before. Hope you join me again. Until then, God bless.